Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Mindset Reset Monday. And we are opening this week up talking about open to possibilities, pretty much an open mindset. We're trying to learn how to unlock our potential this month. And so today we're talking about, or this week, we're talking about open to possibilities, right? Today our focus is on stories and triggers. And today's title is What If You Were Meant for More? Like, what if you were meant for more? Listen, this session or this lesson is really about vision reactivity, right? Like, or reactivating your vision for your life, right? It really is there to confront the stories uh, that you're not enough, or that you don't have enough time, or that, you've waited too long, right? It's really about confronting that, right? Um, it pulls the threads back to really help you with the discontentment that you've been feeling. All right. The core of today's message is truly more capacity, more purpose, more voice, and more power. Okay. Listen, you are not asking for too much. You're just asking for some type of alignment. And I think that we have to understand the difference between being open to possibilities and settling for what we have. And that settling is truly happening because of some fear, right? Some tiredness, that voice in your head that's like, this is too much. And anything that you do, I heard somebody say over the weekend, everything is impossible until you do it. Right? Everything is impossible until you do it. Why? Because the nervous system, and my answer to the wife to that is that the nervous system is going to try to what? Stop you from doing this thing. All right. So what if you were meant for more? Right? And this thing that's calling you, or this ease that's calling you, right, is really your spiritual self or your divine self saying, hey, there's more to eat of this life. Okay. And you've taken a pit stop long enough. All right. You've taken a pit stop long enough. So today we're talking about stories and triggers, or the stories and the trigger patterns. And I want you to see what these sound like. Like, I should be grateful, right? A lot of us have accomplished a lot of things. A lot of us have started um, to change the trajectory of the experiences of our lives, of our families, right? And so there's this kind of a guilt associated, or what we call false humility associated with our level of success, that makes us feel like, well, I should be grateful for what I have, because you understand that what you have is way more than what you used to have, right? But let's put that in perspective, because maybe you activated yourself, right? And maybe the level that you're serving could have been the default for your family, but nobody in your family was willing to do what you did to get to this level, right? And now this is just a springboard for you to what? To do more, to have more, right? Another way that this sounds is that other people have it worse than me, right? And so again, it's I'm comparing myself to other people, and I feel kind of like this survivor's remorse, because you know I have a level of success. I'm doing pretty well for myself. Is this need to want more? Is it something wrong with me? Okay. Another way that this comes up is maybe I'm just being selfish. Um, and if I go for more, I might mess up what I already have. Okay. If I go for more, I might mess up what I already have. Listen, these are just internal loyalty loops. Okay. That's keeping you bound to a vision of yourself that's too small for the assignment of your life. And that's where the dis-ease come. Listen, I always tell this story about me and my sister. I truly feel like my sister was content, right? She knew what she wanted, and her capacity for some things were very different than my capacity, right? So she was very much the homebody. Like, she wanted to go to work. She wanted an assignment at work. Like, listen, tell me what to do, and then I'm gonna go home. One of my best friends is the same way. Listen, I want to go to work. I want to clock out. I want to do what I need to do at work, clock out, come home, and do what I need to do at home. Very much comfortable in their capacity, if it's income or whatever. Where me, on the other hand, it's like this need to expand, this need to grow, this need to develop and create. You know what I mean? And and I want to say bucking up against individuals that have found a place to settle in life. And I'm not saying settling bad, but a place to sit at, right? Like I'm sitting right here and I'm cool with that. And me saying, I feel like something else is calling me. All of this stuff comes up, and I just want this week to say, hey, you know what? Maybe you were meant for something more, and that doesn't make you better or worse or good or bad, but it's just giving you permission to really step outside your comfort zone. All right. So here's some reframes for you. You're not too much, right? You're just in the space that's too small for you. Okay. You're not too much. You're just in a space that's too small for you. Listen, you're not lost, right? You're just unfolding, right? And you realize that you still have more to offer. Okay. Listen, you're not ungrateful. All right. You're just being awakened to a truth, right? That wants to be seen, that wants to be birthed. All right. All right. So, what's my why for today's session? Listen, this session is truly about interrupting that inner dialogue that says settle, that says shrink, and that says stay small. Okay. It's about waking up to your vision or to the version of life that you want to live, and really helping you see the discomfort you're feeling is not about being dissatisfied. It's really about your destiny or your desires really calling you for a higher purpose, right? We were not all created the same. You know what I mean? And I know that that can be tough to take in because we are not all created the same. And when you're kind of created differently, it can create some dis-ease, some disconnect within you. But we have to honor that space, right? That space that we were all not created the same. And how do I, someone who was created to be different, to have more, to be more, to feed more people, to expand, to serve more people, to serve in a different group, to be of service differently than what I've seen and experienced, how do I give myself permission to do that? And a big part of that is understanding what you are actually, experiencing on the inside. Okay. On the inside. So here's the disclaimer for today. I want you to, this disclaimer, the awareness in action, really recognizing the stories that say this is enough, isn't, this is enough isn't betrayal. It's the beginning of your expansion. All right. Awareness is the first disruption. But transformation really comes from aligned action. Okay. With your truth that you were made for more. All right. That you were made for more. All right. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is Mindset Reset Monday. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. Again, we're talking about how to unlock your potential. And we are on the O, okay? And O is for really opening yourself to possibilities and really claiming your power. All right, opening yourself to possibilities and really claiming your power. And I want to say, and I keep turning to my board because a big part of this is just being open-minded. All right, and if you haven't heard of the term open-minded, it's truly just believing that you can expand and that you can grow, that life is not fixed, right? I was born like this, and so this is just who I am. Very much a fixed mindset, okay? This week is about expanding and challenging the fixed part of us to let us be more expansive and more growing, and knowing that this conversation is going to trigger, right? That maybe some dis-ease, all right, and giving ourselves permission to feel that, or it may even trigger some excitement, some motivation, and some inspiration. That is my hope for this morning. All right, so let's get present in our bodies, as we have done what we were supposed to do on this day for ourselves, and now we're coming together for our intention, really setting the tone for the day. So feeling your feet on the floor, okay, feeling your feet on the floor, bringing some compassion and some love and just grounding ourselves, right? If you want to do a visualization while you're doing this, you can visualize like water pouring from your feet, just getting real grounded, right? A magnet kind of pulling you to the ground and really grounding you, right? Coming up our legs, our torso, all right? Um, all of our organs, bringing some attention to our organs, okay? Our heart, okay? Bringing some attention to our heart on this morning, down our arms, activating our hands this morning, okay? Up, okay? Our lips, nose, eyes, softening our ears, the top of our heads, all right? All right. And just getting present in the body and bringing some love and some compassion to the body and just whispering thank you on this morning to this vessel. All right. To our bodies. All right. Okay. So today's title again, what if you were meant for more? And our focus is on stories and triggers this morning. All right. Stories focus is on stories and triggers. So who is this session for? It's for you if you feel guilty for wanting more. This is for you if you feel guilty for wanting more, if you've minimized your vision, right, to stay comfortable, or if you or to make others feel comfortable, all right? You've confused peace for playing small. And a lot of us are just playing small in our lives, and it's bringing some dis-ease, and we're doing it because we think that it's going to bring peace, and it may have some peace externally, but it's keeping you up at night. All right. Listen, I want to say a couple of things. Listen, your resistance to more isn't laziness, it's kind of loyalty, okay? Your resistance to more isn't you being lazy, right? So, you want more, but you're avoiding it, and you're being resistant, and then you're judging yourself as lazy. That's not it. Another possibility could be that you're loyal. And what are you loyal to? Many people are afraid of more. They're afraid of what they'll have to leave behind to what? To go after what they want. Okay. And that is what you're loyal to. So this includes relationships that only know the smaller version of you. This includes the roles where you always, where you've been the background or the helper, right? And this also includes internalized beliefs that say wanting more is selfish, right? You're loyal to that part of you. So it's not that you're lazy, it's just that your loyalty is lying with who you are, who you were in the past, and not projected to your future person. And we have to learn to be loyal to the person that we're becoming. So so I want you to know that more will be required of you to confront what you're still loyal to. Okay. This comfort that you're loyal to, the culture that you're loyal to, right? And shifting that to your calling. All right. Being more loyal to your calling. Another thing I want you to know is that the stories that you're too much is often the most dangerous one, right? All right. So this single story or that single story has kept brilliant, intelligent, powerful, intuitive people from really rising. Okay. The whole idea that you're being too much, or you think you're too good, right? This doesn't scream at you, right? It doesn't really. Well, when you were younger, you probably screamed at you, but when you got older, right? This whispers stuff like, don't be too loud, stay humble, right? You don't want to intimidate people, right? Tone down, right? Don't be so grand. Listen, this lesson isn't about dreaming, it's about healing the parts of you that were told that your fullness was a flaw, right? When you stood up and you said something and somebody was like, you think you too much, or sit down, or you talk too much, or whatever that is, right? It has made an impression on you to not go after the thing you desire. And today we just want to shift that story. All right. More isn't greedy, it's generational. This is another thing I want you to know. Listen, your growth isn't about you. All right. When you rise, you disrupt patterns, you shift bloodlines, and you expand what's possible for others who are watching you. So a lot of times this thing that's growing and calling you, it ain't even for you. It's as if you are the becoming a tree that's going to provide shade, right, to whoever comes under it, right? And this could be your children, your clients, your community, right? Your loved ones, your mate, right? And you have to grow to a certain stature because you were called to serve a certain position, right? And that's going to require you to do some things that may be uncomfortable. All right. Listen, refusing to grow doesn't preserve your peace. It actually prevents your legacy. All right. From building this legacy. And a lot of us are on this legacy building and really changing the trajectory of this experiences of our children and our children's children. And that's going to require something different of you from today on, right? With this new information. Another thing I want you to know is that saying yes to more will trigger a part of you that is used to settling. All right. So saying yes to more will trigger a part of you that's used to settling. So don't be afraid if this week feels uncomfortable. All right. You're shedding false securities. you're shedding old beliefs, and you're in this identity mask. All right. You're going to confront that. And this discomfort isn't a sign that you're off track. It's just proof of your expansion. Remember, we're talking about triggers today. And the trigger is just like, hey, you're stepping off the grass into onto concrete. And your mind and your intelligence understands that, and it's triggering you, right? It's saying, hey, this is a kind of like it's waving a flag and saying, hey, this is new territory, or this is different territory, or it's the point in which you're stepping out your comfort zone, and then your life is going to project back to you what you have already experienced. So if you're triggered in a way when you step on concrete, right, and you stepped on concrete before and something dangerous happened to you, a lot of times what you will do is you will project that into this present moment, and it has nothing to do with that. All right. And so we just want to be aware about what this present moment has to bring and offer you, especially based on your prayers, right? A lot of us is praying for a lot of things that's going to require you to step outside your comfort zone. All right. Number 5, you don't need another sign. Okay. You need an agreement with your own voice. All right. So you don't need another sign. I know a lot of us is asking for a sign, somebody to come tell me something, give me that call, God, give me the confirmation, let me know when it's the right time. Someone to say, yes, go, right? We're looking for confirmation from something that has already been confirmed. All right. So most times we delay action because we're waiting for somebody else to validate, or just another sign, or another yes, when you already have it. All right. So today's lesson isn't about that, right? Today's lesson is that yes is already in you. I'm letting you know that this yes is already in you. All right. And you don't have to believe, and you just have to believe that your yes is enough. All right. Your voice is the green light. So you have permission to start moving. Now, with that being said, you might need supports, right? You may need a coach, you may need a therapist, you may need somebody to help you walk this yes out. All right. But directionally, hey, it's time for me to move, right? I have the yes. So let me get some more support around this. All right. Listen, I want to ask you, what if this isn't about a mind shift, but it's about a divine interruption, right? Like the things that's happening to you, this dis-ease, these triggers and these stories that you're feeling the weight of, that's keeping you up at night, that's got you searching Google, that got you asking Chat GPT questions. What if all of that is not just about your life changing, but it's about like divine interruption? It's truly time for you to change from the branch to the leaf. All right. Right. Or it's truly time for you to change from the stem to the rose. Right. A totally different composition that was already in you from the beginning. Right. Remember, I talk about this seed. The inner seed is already everything that it needs to be to become the thing that the seed will produce. All right. But the seed doesn't look like the apple. Rose seed doesn't look like a rose. But in that seed is everything that's going to be required for that rose to become a rose. But at some point, the rose has to stop being a stem and actually bud a flower. And at some point, the tree has to stop being a tree, right? And start to bear fruit, start to bear an apple, right? And that apple looks very different than the tree, right? And so this divine interruption is maybe a shift in you, right? You're changing from roots to trunks, or from a trunk to a branch, or from a branch to a leaf. All right. And we have to recognize these changes in our life so we can support or get the support that we need during that time. All right. And release, right? And release anything that is ready to be released, right? Purging, pruning, right? And getting it out the way. And then allowing ourselves to grieve that in which we have to let go. So a part of life is living in this duality of grief and excitement, especially when we're transitioning, right? Because we haven't truly we're not all the way in this new place, right? So we need space to really grieve where we were at, right? And feel that, while also knowing that there's some gratitude, some happiness, and some excitement, and living in this place of duality, which can be very emotional. All right. All right. And so we just have to take time out our day to really breathe. Take it all in, right? Because our life is changing and so many great things are happening. And a lot of times we can get so overwhelmed that we start to sabotage, right? We start to question, right? We start to not show up or start to shrink because it's starting to trigger parts of you, right? That makes that journey feel uncomfortable. And that's where we partner. That's where we connect. Because listen, we need a community so that we can what? Experience this life to its fullness. All right. All right. Okay. So here's our guiding quote. If that makes sense, put a one in the chat for me. Okay, so here's our guiding quote for today. What if, it's a question actually, what if your dissatisfaction isn't disloyalty, but it's divine interruption? All right. What if your dissatisfaction or your dis-ease, right? It's not disloyal, it's just divine interruption. Listen, real life story. I want to talk about a client. She had a stable job, a decent salary, and everyone told her she was so lucky, right? She was so lucky to have this job. Few people get it, right? She was able to really move and migrate outside of the community that she lived in. All right. So from the outside looking in, everybody felt like she was doing good, but deep down, she felt empty. All right. She thought she was being ungrateful. Okay. She thought that she had this sense of ungratefulness until she realized that she was just being called for something higher. All right. So when she finally gave herself permission to really dream again, guess what? She was able to launch her own consulting firm, right? Not off of rebellion, but out of alignment. It was what her life was calling her to do at that time. All right. And everything that she had done, as we discussed, brung her to this moment. All the lessons, all of the challenges, the joys, all of it brought her to this moment, right? So it wasn't that she was being rebellious or going against the grain. It was more out of alignment. And so shifting that energy really allowed that energy to pour into, okay, this is an aligned decision. This ain't me rebelling against everything that I know or all the people who saying, no, this is aligned action for me, which shifted the energy. All right. And so sometimes we have to stop calling ourselves the rebellious one, right? The black sheep of the family, right? And really start just saying that this is aligned purpose, right? I'm doing this out of alignment. All right. So our heart check-in on this morning. I want you to ask yourself as we come into bringing some attention into your heart, right? What have you been calling stability? But it's really a form of what? Settling. All right. So what have you been calling stability? And it's really a form of settling. This can be in your relationship with yourself, okay, with your mate. And not saying that you have to leave your mate, but maybe there's some things that need to be discussed in your relationship that you haven't discussed, right? That you haven't talked about, that the relationship is ready to expand in, but because you don't want to, create waves, or because you don't want to cause a conflict, right? You're not going to go get the therapist or a coach to really help you, or that third party to really help you navigate this conversation so that the relationship can grow and support what the potential the relationship has. Okay. This could be in your job. All right. This could be with your kids. So again, what have you been calling stability? But it's really a form of settling for you. Okay, listen, the truth is you are not meant to stay in a container that you've outgrown. All right, playing small often looks like humility, but it's actually fear in disguise. All right, it's actually fear in disguise. And when you say, I'm just being realistic, guess what? What you might be really saying is that I'm afraid of what? I'm afraid, or I have some fears around expansion. All right. All right. I'm afraid of this risk that this expansion may cause. All right. Maybe I'll lose everything. Right. And so I'd rather hold on to what I have than to risk that to try to get something bigger. And a big part of that is our mindset, right? Be grateful for what you have, especially when you come from scarcity. And when I say come from scarcity, let me give some examples of that, especially when you come from like food stamps or, very impoverished background, right? There was this sense of be grateful for what you had. Be grateful for what you have, and to the even the thought of wanting more is like out of alignment, you want new shoes or you want something, but you got to get the hand-me-downs, right? And you need to be grateful for these hand-me-downs, right? Very much conditioned. I say that you're not broken, you're just patterned. And if you grew up in a impoverished scarcity mindset environment, guess what? A big part of this being this fear of expansion is real. It can bring up some feelings and some emotions, and sometimes those emotions may come out as tears, sometimes they may come out as excitement, right? But any way they come out, there's support needed. All right, because you're in new territory and the nervous system is feeling like this is not safe. This is not safe. All right. And it could be the very thing that you need. And that's why, again, I encourage you to seek help, and get some help as you start to align, not rebel, but align, step into what you were called to do. All right. This matters because your energy will always leak into, or your energy always leaks when you're living under a false ceiling. What does that mean? When you're living under false support, it's kind of like carbon monoxide, right? You don't really smell it, but it's slowly slowly affecting you. And when we're living in misalignment, the same thing happens. It's kind of like it drains your energy. You don't really have you kind of start to feel this dis-ease, right? Where you don't really want to do much, or you're only showing up for the things you need to show up as. You're kind of laying down, right? You're not really activated or, inspired, right? And sometimes not even motivated, right? And it's truly because there's a misalignment. But guess what? You've accumulated so much in this life, right? You have so many connections, so many relationships. So risking that, right, seems like a lot. And I think that there's a belief that if I go into this new life, then all of this has to get thrown away. And it's like, no, no, but a rising tide does lift all boats, right? And so as you start to rise, okay, know that your circumstance and conditions will rise, and the people that are supposed to rise with you will rise with you. But the boats and the people being the rising tides, right? But guess what? The boats that have holes in it, they will sink. All right. And so you don't have to call those relationships off or break them off organically. That will happen. Okay. All right. But as you rise, you will start to attract different boats and different supports. Okay. So as you journey through life, you will get the supports that you need. All right. And you just got to trust that. And I think that's the part too, changing the narrative to believe that. All right. And knowing that, I know people are against this idea of hope, but utilizing hope, all right, and faith, that the thing that you desire and want and actually require to sustain success and happiness and contentment and peace, that is there for you. Okay. So you got to cut the light on so you can see it. And cutting the light on is having faith and hope. All right. All right. That makes sense. Put a heart in the chat. All right. So there was one woman who said, when I stopped apologizing for wanting more, I started to live like I deserved it. And that was in all areas of her life. Okay. All right. Listen, studies show that vision clarity significantly increases motivation, purpose-driven behaviors, and emotional resilience. All right. So just having a clear vision for your life. Like, again, I say this, a lot of us know what we don't want, and we're running. We're running away from that thing. Listen, I don't want this. So let me, I don't want to, I don't know, be sick. So let me eat healthy. I don't want to, I don't know, be like my mama. So let me do this. Right. And what we end up experiencing is the very thing that we don't want. And that's what we don't realize, is that the thing you don't want is the vision that you're very clear about. And that's what you're actualizing. Okay. All right. The thing that you don't want is the vision that has so much clarity and so much emotions on it that you end up actualizing the very thing you don't want. And we have to cut the light on the things you do want. And how do we do that? Is, okay, why don't you want to be like your mama? Okay. Or what is it that you do want? Okay. That looks different than what your mom had? What is it that you do want to demonstrate that you feel like your mom didn't demonstrate or your dad didn't demonstrate? All right. And really start filling in these gaps so you can be very clear or have a clear vision of where you're going, with the understanding that this stuff is going to come up. The stuff I don't want is going to come up, but my focus is on the things I do want. All right. Listen, you're not too much. You're just compressed. Okay. You're just compressed. And the next level is truly calling you. All right. So we know that the S in stop it is for stories. Okay. So today we talk about stories and triggers. We confront the limiting stories that we've internalized that really equate expansion to arrogance and ingratitude. Okay. Today, though, is the day we stop telling ourselves small stories. We start living big. All right. So here's some essential truths about storage triggers and what possibilities. All right. You know that term impossible is really impossible, right? I am possible. Okay. So here is some stories and some triggers and or some essential truths about these, getting some clarity about your possibilities. All right. Listen, most of the stories you live aren't yours. They're inherited. I'm gonna say that every Monday, right? Even around this topic, the stories of what you're actually capable to do, may be inherited. It's learned. All right. Remember, here inherited is in the blood, right? So this limitation is in the blood. And I talk about that grasshopper or that grasshopper who could jump 12 feet, but the mama, was a lid on him. So now the baby only can jump to the feet that the mama was trained that baby to, right? That's an inherited belief, all right? Because the mom now had to adjust, all right? Learned beliefs are possible too. You've learned some things, right? You caught or you got something got caught or got taught to you along the way that really started to shrink the possibilities or your thoughts, all right? Listen, you didn't choose the belief that said, don't ask for too much, all right? It was handed to you by your family, by religion, and by culture, okay? I want you to know today, though, that you are allowed to challenge what you didn't consciously choose. All right. And that could have showed up in any way. I know when I used to go to the grocery store, we got food stamps, and, growing up with my grandparents, we got food stamps. And it was just certain things that we just couldn't get. Right. So when I was told, like, no, you can't get that, right, because of whatever, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources or whatever, then that belief went across all spectrums of my life. So when it was time for me to ask for field trip money, I had some ambivalence, like, oh, am I going to be able to go on this trip with my school, or is that me asking for too much? Right? A lot of my clients feel this same way, right? This asking for what they want because they have not gotten it when they were younger. And as adults, we can reprogram that story, okay? Number 2, triggers are invitations, not interruptions. I talked about this earlier. So when something stirs up like anger, insecurity, and anxiousness, it's not random, you guys. It's revealing the unhealed places or the suppressed desires. So what triggers you is really trying to what? Teach you. All right. Teach you a different way of being. All right. Settling isn't the same as being stable. All right. Listen, many people confuse not rocking a boat with peace, but peace without trust or truth is just pain, you guys. So stability without growth is stagnation. All right. Okay. Desire is not disobedience, it's direction. All right. You desiring more in your life is not disobedience, it's direction. All right. Listen, your desire for more isn't rebellion against what? Gratitude. It's a whisper from your calling saying, hey, come this way. Listen, the grass at some point, we all start at the ground, but the grass and the trees are very different. All right. The grass can stop growing and the tree still has more to grow. Let's even say the grass, the bushes, and the trees. All right. So the grass grows. Now, what if the grass told the bush, like, hey, what are you doing? We stop here. But this bush was meant to grow. you know, bigger, right? And then just say the bush now is comfortable because it's a tree next to it that's grown with it. Now the bush has grown to its potential, but the tree still has more to give, right? But all of it is being fueled by what? The same soil. The same soil is fueling the grass, is fueling the bush, and it's fueling the tree, right? All right, if that makes sense, put a one in the chat, right? And you're living in a community where there's grass people in a sense, right? There's bush people, right? And then there's tree people, right? And you may be a tree or you may be a bush, and you're allowing the grass, right, to stop you from expanding, from growing. And life is calling you and whispering and saying, hey, this desire to grow is not you being disobedient. It's not you being rebellious. It's actually you being in alignment. All right. All right. Number 5, old survival stories resist expansion. So the version of you that survived rejection, abandonment, or shame may not feel safe chasing anymore. You may not feel safe chasing it anymore, but that's okay. It's your job to assure yourself that evolving is safe. All right. Fear doesn't mean stop, it means to stretch. All right. And when we start to feel fear, we can whisper, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. All right. Because we know that this is new territory. This is something different from me. And so my body is responding not to the circumstance and condition that I'm doing, but just to the newness. And it's my job as being the driver in the seat to remind myself that I'm safe. All right. That I'm safe. All right. Your too much is often your power misnamed. Okay. So you're too much, right? It's often your power is often your power misnamed. Listen, if people said that you were too loud, that you were too emotional, or that you're too ambitious, guess what? It's a possibility, or probably means that you're just too powerful for their comfort zone. Again, not judging the grass, because we know grass is needed, it's necessary. All right. But the grass may have a problem with the bush, given that they all started at the same time and got planted at the same time, was all seeds. And when that bush started to grow a little bigger, could have intimidated the grass. All right. And that doesn't mean that the bush is better than the grass or the grass is better than the bush. It's just the difference. All right. So you're not too much, you're just compressed. All right. All right. And a lot of times we're getting responses from our comfort zone, from our communities, that is saying, hey, you're too emotional, you're too ambitious, you're too loud. And it's just more showing their comfortability than it is showing or a demonstration of your growth or what you are. Okay. And we have allowed other people's opinion to really determine our identity, our potential for far too long. Okay. And guess what? We do that in reverse too. I'm thinking that that's why we seek validation, because the limitations that we've lived in so long was ascribed to us by what people said. And so we're looking for a person to come in and validate this capacity space. And we're looking for somebody to say, hey, good job. You got a calling on your life. You're looking for some type of prophetic word, right? To give you permission, or, something that God, give you direction, but you feel that it's coming up for you. So you may be the voice that needs to validate that. All right. So you may be the voice that needs to validate that. And once you validate that, then somebody else can come in and confirm it. All right. All right, listen, unspoken stories become unconscious ceilings. So if you're not questioning the narratives, like those narratives like I'm not ready, all right, I always sabotage, or I don't deserve more, guess what? You unknowingly build your life around that. All right. So unchallenged stories will shape your outcome. So we, as this grown age of an adult, we have to start challenging the stories that we tell ourselves about what? About everything. We have to get curious. All right. We have to get curious. All right. Number 8, opening to more requires grieving what's familiar. I talk about grief a lot. And, when I talk about grief to people, I think that it's like an aha moment because I think that we only associate grief to death. And we are grieving ideas of ourselves. We're grieving, relationships that we thought could be possible that didn't pan out, right? All of those things need to be purged and they need to be pruned, right? And when we cut that part of off of us, you know, there is a part of emotions that we have attached to that we need to grieve. Allow space to grieve and sit in that and breathe through that. Okay? All right? So being open to more requires grieving. And I think that that's the part that we don't want to feel. Listen, before you rise, you often have to release relationships, routines, all right, and even internal versions of yourself. That grief isn't failure, you guys. It's a sacred space making. All right. When you allow yourself to grieve, it's kind of like cleaning out your closet. The shirt that you had that you stuck to and you was like, yeah, but I don't wear that no more. I never really wore this. Right. And it's like letting it go and you see it over there in the bag and you want to pull it back in, but like that shirt is better served on somebody else for another reason. And I need to make space in my room. So I need to let that go. All right. Listen, letting go makes room for your becoming. And it's a lot of us who have not purged and allowed ourselves to grieve so that we can create the space for the new thing that's trying to come in. All right. And again, that's like pruning, cutting the ends of the plants that's dying, right, in us, pulling those things off so the energy can be getting fuel to the thing that's currently living in you or the becoming part of you. All right. So if you think about your life, like if you got a closet full of stuff in you that's not serving you, you're no longer wearing it, and your relationships financially is not doing it's not serving a purpose, then we have to go in and we have to unpack that, and then we have to put that to rest. All right. And we can do that with a visualization, or we like packing up all our stuff and setting it on the curb, right? And watching the garbage man come pick it up, right? And taking it away. We can see it as, us piling all of our stuff up, right? Setting it on fire and watching it burn and feeling that attachment to it, right? We can do something like cutting cords, so imagining ourselves really cutting like cords from around our hearts, cords from around our, certain energy fields in our bodies, right? And feeling that release, right? And then grieving that, allowing that grief to take place, that letting go. And what is that making room for? For this becoming new space, right? New potential, new possibilities, all right? And moreover, helping you to unlock your potential, right? Giving you room for this potential that's living in you to expand and grow, all right? A couple of more things. Listen, self-worth is the gatekeeper of possibility. So you're only reach, listen, you only reach for what you believe you're worthy of. All right. You only reach for what you believe you're worthy of. And that's why healing is about identity and not just action, you guys. So a big part of the work that you're doing, if you're working with your therapist or if you're working with a coach, I really hope that it's centered around identity. Who are you? All right. And who is this person you want to become? And what do you need to become that individual? All right. All right. Because you'll only reach what you believe you're worthy of. And that's why healing is about identity, not just action. All right. Listen, the stories that you tell yourself about your worth really shapes what you allow yourself to receive. All right. And then last but not least, power is not found, it's reclaimed, you guys. Power is not found, it's reclaimed. Remember, power is your birthright. All right. So you already have what you need. You just forgot. Okay. You just forgot. You shrunk, you silenced. But deep down, the real you never left. So claim your power is remembering what was always true. Okay. Right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat as we move on to our biblical wisdom on this morning. Isaiah 54 and 2. All right. Enlarge the place of your tent, shrink your tent curtains wide. Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide. Don't hold back, lengthen your cords, all right, and strengthen your strides. Listen, this verse, Isaiah 54 and 2, this principal verse, this verse is not about a literal tent. It's really about capacity. And I've brung this verse to you guys before, right? It's an invitation to expand. All right. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtains out wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. Okay. Listen, the stretch beyond to this is really an invitation about expansion, really to stretch beyond what your current space is. All right. To really make room for what? For what's next. For what's next in your life. Okay. To really stop living small and become to stop living small because small feels safe. All right. Listen, you've been building your life based off of who you were, not from who you were becoming. All right. And in the spirit, you know that there's room for more. I really do think so. If you hear me kind of pausing as I'm saying this, because something is coming up as I'm saying it, and I want space for both of those to exist in my brain. All right. So, but what this reminds me of is I really do think that when you're younger, you had a vision for your life. All right. Especially when you lived in poverty, come from trauma, scarcity, things like that, or just really was unhappy or you wanted to leave, right? And so there was this narrative, and this story was, I'm gonna have a life like A, B, C, D. And to you or into the mind, that was concrete. That is what I'm going to do. All right. And what we didn't understand back then was what we know now is this growth, right? That is one space on this map. Okay, what's coming up for me is like Monopoly, right? You're gonna go around that board of Monopoly a couple of times, right? Just because you pass go one time don't mean that you done, right? But your goal in the beginning is to probably, get, I don't know, you know, what's those ones? Get the red states, Illinois, and then you go around again to get the yellow ones, the orange ones, and then you go around to get the purple ones, right? But you keep going around this board to collect stuff, right? And each time you go around, your goal is going to change. Now, a lot of us is just stuck in that first goal, like to get out. Get out what? Get out the hood, get out of get out of poverty, right? Get out from under our parents' roof, right? And so that we had so much energy tied to that, and we never expanded past that. But life required that was just your first go round. Now you got to figure out, okay, what you finna collect this next go round, and the next go round, and the next go round, because life is going to continue to what? To send you around this board, and it's the same board. And I think that's the other part. Like, I'm using Monopoly specifically because your board may be the same, but you're collecting different things, right? So you may see run into the same people. I don't care where you move to. You may, move somewhere, but now you see this person on social media or whatever, because wherever you go, there you are. All right. All right. So, but like I said, that first time around, you're focused on something very different than the second time around, and the third time around, and the fourth time around. And all I'm saying is today's session is really about opening this week is about opening yourself to the possibility that that one dream that you had, maybe there's more. Maybe there's more to you than just the marriage. Maybe there's more to you than just becoming a mother. Maybe there's more to you than just getting a degree, right? Maybe there's more, and that's the dis-ease you're feeling. And because you want that more, but you've achieved this dream, right? You've achieved it. There's this stagnation that you're feeling, right? That you're feeling about where you're at, but there's also some guilt, right? Some, am I being ungrateful, right? And it's like, no, it's just I need to roll the dice again. It's time for me to roll the dice. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat. All right. All right. Again, so the verse, how this ties in is that, listen, you've been building a life based off of who you were, not who you're becoming. And again, the spirit is in you saying, now make room for that. So this command is not the command to not hold back directly speaks to your internal stories that we carry. All right. That I should be content, that I don't want to be too ambitious, and that I'm not trying to stay in my lane, or that I'm trying to stay in my lane. All right. But the scripture isn't a suggestion, you guys. It is a request for your expansion. Okay. All right. And sometimes we are using things to self-medicate because we don't want to roll the dice again. Right? Because if I roll the dice, guess what? If we play Monopoly, if I roll the dice, then there's a possibility that I may land on somebody else's property and now I got to give up all the money that I made. Or there's a possibility that I could, in this game of Monopoly, go to jail, right? And now I can't roll again until somebody comes help me out. But it's the game. All right? It's the game. Okay? And if you want to feel active in your life, you got to be willing to play the game, to roll the dice, right? To do the things that's required to make you happy. All right. So listen, this verse is not God yelling from the sky. It's really this divinity in you, this God within you whispering and saying, listen, you are allowed to move more or to want more. You're allowed to need more, and you're allowed to become more. All right. Listen, enlarging your tent means to make room for this new vision of your life. All right. Breaking the loyalty to your limitations, and then trusting that your more has a place. All right. That your more has a place. And with the understanding that this limitation of your story, right? I just talked about, a lot of us are just living the thing that we wanted. We were escaping, right? And we didn't really understand that, life is about expanding. So I can actually redo my life over and over again. I can move to different jobs. I can, expand my territory. I can expand my relationships, right? Like, yeah, I'm married and I'm loyal to my mate, but I can build community. I can have friendships. I can do things, right? And even in that, the level of, I want to say, ownership that we have over our mates, to not let them grow. I often tell my friends, my male friends, when I'm in relationships, listen, when I met you, you had a community. You had a community of people, right? So you had the homegirl that you talked to, that you know I don't know, that provided you with whatever. You know what I mean? You had your homeboys that provided you whatever. Myself, I can't come in and take up their space. So I'm not coming in trying to take over that territory or telling you who you can talk to or who you can't talk to, because the person that I met, the person that I fell in love with, had all of those relationships to support them, which is why you were able to show up for me the way you did. Now, if I come into your life, right, and I start to cut these relationships off because of how I feel, right? Oh, you too close to her, or oh, you spending too much time with him, right? And it's making me feel away. So now I'm throwing these ultimatums. I'm changing you, right? And now the person, I'm cutting off all these people, right, that have served a point of your life, either once a week, once a month, whatever. You say this your friend, it's your friend, right? And I'm gonna trust that until I can't trust that. But I'm not coming in to try to cut off everybody, because now you're different. And I can't serve you in the way that your community served you. And so many of us is going into relationships and we're cutting people away from their community, and then we're expecting them to be the same. And you probably can't serve the way that friend served, male, female, or, however, right? But the thing is that we don't trust. We don't trust that people are telling the truth, because, again, we've been wounded. We've been lied to, right? And we may have done some things. We may have done the lies. And so we're so trying to prevent things from happening that we're stifling ourselves in the thing that's supposed to give us our greatest expression, which is our intimate relationships. Okay. All right. So we have to be able to really enlarge our tents, enlarge our territory, enlarge our relationships. All right. And in that analogy of Monopoly, being able to roll the dice again so we can keep going past go and collecting our property. Okay. All right. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. Our principal verse for today is Ephesians 3:20. All right. Now he who was able to do immeasurably more than now to to him now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine according to his power that is at work within us. All right. This is a radical reminder that what you imagine for your life isn't even the limit. Okay. That the more you want peace, purpose, wealth, visibility, impact isn't too much. It's actually just the starting point. Okay. Because here's the key phrase: according to his power that is at work within us. All right. So we are still limited in our capacity, no matter how big we dream, because there's a divinity in us that's so much bigger than that. We can't even fathom it. All right. So that means that it's not an external validation that unlocks more, it's the internal activation. Okay. The more you want is not separate from you. The more you want is not separate from you. It's already in you, waiting for agreement. So again, now to whom now him to him who is able. Say that 5 times. My brain is kind of getting twisted when I say that. All right. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to the power at work within us, according to his power at work within us. Listen, this is a radical reminder that that what you've imagined for your life isn't even the limitation, right? The more that you want, that peace, that purpose, and that wealth, visibility, and impact, it isn't too much, you guys. Listen, this scripture reminds you that you don't need to become enough, that you already are. All right. And that you don't need to get ready, right? You just need to stop resisting the growth and that push that's in you, and that God's power is not far off, right? It's working, uh, it's at work within you, and it's helping you to become. All right. So together, these verses don't just inspire, they authorize. And what are they authorized? Isaiah 54:2 is telling you to stretch. All right. And then Ephesians 3:20, it tells you that you're already equipped for what? For the stretch. All right. So they remind you that your desire for more is not a disruption, it's a divine direction, you guys. And you are not being loyal, you're being drawn. Okay. You're not being disloyal. I'm sorry, you're not being disloyal. You're being drawn to what? To the next purpose of your life. All right. So, my question for you is, what would shift if you stopped editing your desires and started expanding your vision to what? To the thing that you want, in the direction of who you're becoming. All right. All right. Because a lot of us have vision. We just had a vision of what we don't want. And now you need to create the vision, and you need to shift that to the vision that you do want. All right. Let's put that into practice. I want you to identify one place in your life where you've been shrinking. All right. Write a new vision statement for this area, one that reflects more, and then take one small step towards it today. All right. Your journal prompt for this morning is, what part of me have I been minimizing to stay safe? And then your affirmation for today: I am not asking for too much. I'm asking for alignment. All right. And then our intention for this morning is, today I choose to believe uh that my more is holy and divine. All right. That my more is holy and divine. And here's your bonus challenge. Every time you feel yourself apologizing for your desires this week, I want you to pause and I want you to reframe it out loud. I'm allowed to want more. All right. Reframe that. I'm allowed to want more. Okay. All right. Your call, your challenge, and your charge, I'm always going to give you that. I'm calling, I'm asking you, what truth are you taking away today? All right. Um, your challenge is, what small but bold action will you take today? And then your charge, listen, stop editing your vision and go live in more. More what? More of who you are, more of what you desire. Because today's title is What If You Were Meant for More? Just ask, whisper that to yourself. What if I was meant for more? You know, and see what comes up for you. All right. And see what comes up for you. Listen, if today's session resonated with you, okay, if it resonated with you and you're walking away with some insight, you already know what to do. Put a fire in the chat for me and let's celebrate our growth together. Okay. I do want to remind you that Project Life is back open. So if you want to join the project, right, and get part of those coaching labs, get the replays, get the workbooks, right, then you can join at shelittle.com/life. Also want you to remember that if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. And the other part to this is that it is impossible until you do it. Everything is impossible until you do it, right? So if you can shape it in your mind, though, you can have it in your life. I want you to know that I love you. I love you. I love you. I thank you for being a part of today's conversation, right? In this week's conversation, where we're talking about really opening up to possibility and getting clear, right, on where we want to go as we talk about unlocking your potential this month. And I'm asking you to join me tomorrow, right, for Transformational Tuesday as we talk about the permission to shine. Okay. We're talking about the permission to shine. Okay. The visibility, the value, and letting yourself be present in what you speak. All right. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Again, I love you. I love you. I love you. I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. All right. Till later.